Hello and welcome to Art with Mrs. G. In this session I'm going to be showing you how to paint the sea and some wild crashing waves. It's a very experimental style of painting, so you don't need to worry about being too precise. But we will need to look at some pictures of the sea to get an idea of how it moves and real sea colours. And this was inspired by a recent trip I had down to Cornwall in England and to the Newlyn School of Art, where I studied with Kit Johns, who's done some fantastic seascape paintings. And rather like this one here, he paints onto vintage maps. So if you've got any old maps at home that you don't need anymore, maybe you can set them aside, and when you've mastered this technique you can have a go at painting on them just to add a little bit of interest too. But for this painting we're going to be using some poster paints or acrylic, whatever you've got at home. You're going to need some nice big brushes to get the paint on, a nice big thick piece of paper that's going to absorb some of the water if you can, and we're going to mix quite runny paint into cups is probably a good thing, and always have a cloth ready to wipe those mucky hands, okay, and to save a few flicks if they happen. And last but not least, some water ready to make the paint runnier. Let's have a look at some of Kit John's paintings and some images of the sea so we can really study the colour, the movement and what we're going to need to do a realistic seascape. Here's Kit on the beach, studying the sea closely, working quickly straight onto a canvas, trying to catch that movement and the feeling and the colours of the ocean. And this is a typical image of his, full of movement, and you can see the dark colours at the base of the waves, and then how you get that light colour just underneath where it curls, and then the white tops, and he goes back and he puts more white on. And you really need to have that contrast between the dark blues underneath and the pale on top. And he likes to leave texture as well and accidents in the paint. And sometimes he even rubs sand on the bottom of it if there's the beach there to make it really gritty. So you can have really good fun with it. Now, one thing's for sure, the blues that you get out of the tube are not natural sea colours. Don't just squirt them and use them. They're really bright. These are too bright. These won't look like real sea, unless you don't want it to look real, of course. But you need to mix them. Add a bit darker colours, a bit of ochre, a bit of black, a bit of white for paler. Mix it around and try lots of colours until you start getting some natural colours from the sea. Some nice dark shades for the bottom of the wave, some paler ones for just under where it curls, and then the nice white foaming top. So here's my sheet where I've experimented mixing colours. And you can see here it's quite a dark grey blue, and I've practiced going from dark to light. This is a good bit of practice before you do your actual picture. Adding a little bit of ochre, that's a yellowy colour. Trying out with a bit of green for those sparkly, light, clear waters. And some paler colours here. I've tried adding a bit of black in this one. And on each little patch, I've just tried doing little wave stripes differently and experimenting, so that by the time you get around to actually painting your picture, you've had a little practice and tried doing the tops of waves and things just a little bit, and you can decide which colours you want to use. Right, time to get our paints ready. So get your water and pour just a little bit, and I'm going to suggest into 3 cups or bowls or glasses or whatever you're using. Not too much water, you can always add more. This is going to be our runny paint. For my first colour, I'm going to do quite a dark shade. So this one's going to have some nice rich blue, whichever rich blue you've got. So squeeze a nice bit of that in there. And then I'm going to put a blob of black and just darken it up, and a little bit of green. This is going to be my paler middle colour. Less green than the other one. That's definitely a greeny blue, the one I just mixed. You might have a nice bright one. This could go just under the crest of the wave, maybe, this one. And then I'll have a pot of runny white as well. So that's quite a nice deep blue and a greeny sea blue there, and I can always add a bit of white onto it later to get some special effects. And in fact, when you're mucking around here just trying things out, you can have a look and see what happens when you mix the paints and what experimental effects you get. Here's the piece of paper I'm going to be working on. It's nice and thick, and I'm going to wet it all over with a paintbrush first so that when I put the paint on, it will move around on the surface. Time to put the paint on, and I'm going to put it on quite thick and quite fast because I want them all to sort of run into each other and have experimental effects. I don't want the paint to dry out because they won't blend in and get those lovely colours that they accidentally make. I'm going to put this nice dark green on, and I'm imagining a big wave curling along the bottom. You can curl up with the brush too, get some lines on there, some lovely dark colour like that. Get some blue and swish that on top, get it blending together. Doesn't matter if it flicks and splatters, this is all part of the effects that we want. So this lovely blue there just coming off the edge. And then I put my white, dribble my white. It's quite lumpy actually, I should have mixed that better. I dribble my white along the top like that. And look, can you see it? The accidental effects that are already happening. It's like a river on my page. And I can shake that around. And I've got newspaper on the table. So if it comes off, we don't mind. I'm getting these lovely swirly paint colours, almost like marbling. And I can tip my page around to get those colours through and keep them going. That's absolutely fine. Actually, I'm going to let it race off at the end of the sheet there because there's a lot of paint. It's quite watery. And you may need to let this dry. I might even dab some of that off there. And then you can go back in again whilst it's still wet and add some more, get some more blues in. I've got greens and blues coming through here. It's beautiful. Some more white, thinking white along the tops of the waves here. Let it drip down like it's the crest of the wave. Can you see it all running down there? Down off the top. And then if you take something like a knife or a pencil top, you can then trace some curls in the wave. So you can drag some lines down like that. And some flicks off the top where the wave is going. So you can use a palette knife or any kind of implement really for dragging it around. Because its waves splash in all different directions when they break. Wind's blowing the top of it back like that. And it's rolling here. Just have fun with it really. It's a lovely experimental technique. Scrape it there. Let those lovely pale colours come through. Let those greens coming through there as well now. Might dab a little bit off, it's got a bit runny there. Okay. And then a little bit more white at the top here. Let it dribble down. And I will need to go back in later once this is dried and really make that white really nice and bright on the top. If you'd like your painting to dry just a little bit quicker and it got a little bit too wet like mine, you can always give it a blast with a hairdryer for a while. It also pushes the paint around and makes some nice effects. But take care not to lose all those different colours that you've got. You don't want them all mixing together into one colour. Another idea is to get an old toothbrush, which is really good for doing little flicky, foamy effects at the top of the wave. Flicks and blobs. You can also put your hand around it if it's flicking too far to control how far it flicks. So when you've got one wave crest at the front, you could always put some darker paint behind and then put another little roller of a wave behind it. And you could build up going into the distance if you wanted to. But just experiment with your wave painting and you'll get better and better at it. I'm going to leave my painting to dry a little bit now and then go back in and add some nice grey blue sky, put a bit more maybe white on foam on top of the wave. Just experiment with it. But I hope you enjoy your wave painting and do look at some pictures of the sea and just really get out into the fresh air if you have a sunny day, go to the seaside and have a go. Thanks for watching Art with Mrs. G.